Hello everybody, so now we're going to go over lists in Java. So let's just create a project quickly. We'll go to lists, add sample code, create. This tutorial does assume that you've already watched the previous ones in the series. So if you haven't already, go ahead and watch those first. Right, so in a few of the previous videos we discussed arrays, right? You know, you have 2D arrays, 3D arrays, and you can have an array of different types. So you could have, you know, a double array, an int array, all that stuff, right? Now arrays are great, but there is also sort of another type of array that we can use in Java that is a lot easier for us as programmers. Now, let me just go through the sort of drawbacks of an array. So obviously an array has a fixed size. So for example, if we created an integer array, right, we could call it, you know, fixed, right? And we would give it, you know, all its elements. We're not able to add any more elements to this array after 5. We can, you know, we can replace, right? So we can go fixed at 1 or 3 equals, you know, 90, and that's all right. And we can sort of blank out values. We can set these to 0 and things like that. But we can't actually expand the array. So obviously that's one drawback. But also we can't really make the array smaller as such. We can blank out values. Like for example, if I wanted it to be only of length 3, you know, I could try and, you know, blank these out, right? So like I could go like, you know, blank, blank, blank. And obviously in reality these are zeros, but just for demonstration purposes, we'll have those as blanks. The size of that array is still the same size. We can't add and remove elements like on top or on the bottom. We can't prepend, we can't append, we can't do any of that stuff because the array has fixed size. And this is for a good reason, because the thing is that it means that we know that this fixed variable will not go above a certain amount of memory that it's using. But obviously we might want to add to the array, we might want to delete from it, so that can be a real pain. So this is where, you know, dynamic lists come in. And here's how we create a list in Java. So now income lists. So now this is where things get a little bit different. So we type capital L for list, and then we have to use these two sort of greater than, less than symbols here. And in between the two, we then put the type. So we could put string, right? And then we could go like names equals new array list, and then semicolon at the end. That is how we create an empty list. Now, we can actually fill that list up from the get-go if we wanted. And by the way, that is not how you would do that. But you can fill this up from the get-go, or we can fill it up in the lines below. And this is where the advantage comes in, because currently the length of this array, or list in this case, a list is an array, but the length of this is now 0. But we can now expand the length and draw back the length whenever we're not using it. We can add as many as we want. We don't have to specify the amount of data that's going to be stored in there from the get-go, because there might be some cases where we don't know. That it might be down to user input and we can't necessarily, you know, say what the length is going to be. So we need to be able to expand that array. So here's what we do. We go names, dot. And as you see, we have all of these functions here that we can call on this list. Now the top one being add. So let's press enter to get this add. Now this takes in a string. The reason why is because we've got our type here. So this is a list of strings. This can only be a list of strings. So now let's add Ben to our list, semicolon after. And we can add as many of these Bens as we want, does not matter. We can add as many different names as we want. Now, what we can do is we can iterate over this, just like we can a normal array, but we can also print this out. We can actually print out names, and it will format it completely for us. Like this. The reason is because list is an object, and it has all of these sorts of, functions on it, right? So if we look at list, this will all look scary, but this is just internal code within Java. And we can see it has all of these different functions that we can use, and we can call them just like normal functions. So this is why we're able to sort of have an elastic array, right? So we can print out like this, and then after this, we can add even more, right? So we could go like Sophia. And then we can print out names again. And what will happen is we'll get one of them that has just Ben, and then one of them has Ben and Sophia. And then we could have another one. Just repeat this code. Oops. Repeat this code, and then we can say Jake. And as you can see, this array is sort of quite elastic. We can, we can add stuff as much as we want, and we could probably do this even again, right? So we can copy this. Now, this is obviously getting quite repetitive, but I'm just demonstrating the point that we can expand this array as big or as small as we want. Now, let's just delete some of this because we don't need it. We can also remove elements from the array as we want, and they won't just get blanked, but they'll be completely removed. So, for example, this is how we do this. We go names dot remove. And as you can see, we have a few different options here. We just want to choose remove. And we can either remove by index or remove by value. Now, I'm just going to remove by index for now. And this works the exact same as it did with a normal array. So if we remove the first index and then print out names after, then we'll see one array with Ben in it and one array with nothing in it. Which is always useful because now this is far more memory efficient. However, the drawback to this is that when we define our list of names, we don't know how much memory it could be taking up. So let's try and remove by, putting in Ben. Let's see if that does the same trick. And it sure does. Now, these two objects need to match exactly. So, for example, I can't put lowercase b, for example, and it shouldn't remove it. There we go, it still stays. So that's some of the basic features of an array. However, there are some weird caveats. So for example, remember when we had that integer array afterwards? Well, before, right? We would go int with lowercase blah, 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 equals blah, blah, blah. We can't use this lowercase int when working with an array list. We need to use an uppercase integer. So that would be like this, capital I, integer. Like this. And then we could have ages here. Now the reason for this is because list is an object. It is not a type. So, for example, int array is an actual type. So it's like a keyword, built-in keyword. Whereas list of integer, list of type integer, these are effectively, to us, the same thing, but to Java they are not quite, because this integer is also an object, and if we press command and go into this object, we can have a look. And it also has some other functions that you'd expect from an object as well. And under the hood, this actually does use like a normal, int, right? We'll see a lot of ints in here. And obviously this is quite complicated code that we don't need to know about, but it's always nice to look at if we close out of this and unclose that. Is that this is an object version of this. So we have int, which is the built-in type, and then we have integer. These are both part of the JVM, but the thing is that they represent different things. So this is an object and this is a type, but this object has this type within it, but it means that we can have other functionality that's written out for us that makes things easier. And it also means that this list can take in an object type. So now if we try and pass in int, you see it's going to throw all sorts of errors because it's an int, not an object, right? And we need an object to be passed in here. And what this means is we can also make this any other custom object we want. So for example, if I had, let's create another file. And let's create custom object, enter. Let's put some fields in here. Let's go like int age. And then let's go string name. And then let's go, I don't know, Boolean is happy. Let's save that and go back to our main file. We can actually change this out for our own custom object, which has our own custom structure and metadata. So now what we can actually do, if I just get rid of all of this other stuff, is we can perform anything like this, but on a list, right? So we can go ages.add, and then this will not take in a string anymore. This will take in a custom object. So we would need to construct that custom object. So then we would go like custom object equals new custom object, like that. And then we would have to go object dot age equals 10, and object dot is happy equals true. Obviously I'm not 10 and I am happy. Object dot name is going to be equal to Ben the engineer. Bam. Now if we add that object to the list and then print it out, so we go, let's rename it from ages to objs. There we go, objs. We can print objs. As you see, we will get this weird hash code thing, which is like where our object is stored. But let's just say we want to, get the names of everyone in this list. Then we can utilize our normal for loop. So for int I equals 0, I is less than objs dot size. Now here's the difference with a for loop. We use size instead of length because that is a size function. We've got I plus, and then we output objs at I, and then we can go dot. Sorry, we want to go dot get, and then I, and then dot, and then we can get, the age or the name or it is happy. So then we can run that, and we can actually get the actual field of that element. So what we can also do is we can also print out, the age, is happy we'll move the actual name further up so we can go like this. Rerun. Then we'll get all of our attributes of that custom object, which is cool. So that's one use case of lists. It also means we can add stuff dynamically and it can be flexible of size. Hopefully that makes sense to you guys. If you've got any questions, please comment down below and I'll see you in the next video.